video, we are going to practice using purchase orders. The exercise we're going to follow along with is over here on the right-hand side, and this is pulled from our advanced level ProAdvisor certification course. If you would like more information about that course after we go through the exercise, be sure to click on the link below in the description. But let's dive right in and see what our scenario will be for today. Craig decided to get some custom mugs made to give out to his staff and customers as a way to create goodwill and advertise his services. This exercise has 3 parts and all should be done in the same sample company session. So you will need to be in the sample company to do this exercise. If you're not sure how to get into the sample company or get your own free QBOA account, be sure to click on the link below in the description. I have the sample company over here on the left side of my screen. This is the dashboard, and this is what we will be working in for this exercise. So let's get started with the first part. Craig has worked with Mahoney Mugs on the design and has provided a purchase order for $500. So how would you set this up? Let's find out. First, you need to click on the plus new button and then click on purchase order. Plus new button is up on the top left corner of the screen. Go ahead and select that. And then under vendors, you want to select purchase order. Now, when it comes up for us, we are going to fill it out. In the vendor field, we want to select Mahoney Mugs. So go ahead and click into that. You can either start typing their name or you can click the down arrow and scroll. Once you find their name, go ahead and select it. You'll see some of their information up here. And let's continue filling out the purchase order. We want to click on the down arrow to open up the category details grid, and that is because the item details grid is for inventory products. This is not an inventory product, so we don't want it in the item details, we want it in the category details. So click that arrow to expand it. If you want to collapse the item details, feel free to do that. And then let's go ahead and fill out this category. In the first line on the first line in the category field, we want to select advertising. So if you click into it 2 times, it'll be the one right at the top. It's that advertising, it's an expense account. And then let's go ahead in the description field, type custom mugs. That way we know what this purchase order is for. So go ahead and click into it and type custom mugs. And then in the amount field, we need to type 500 because that is what the purchase order was for. So go ahead and click into that box, type 500, and this is all complete now. So we just want to simply save and close. That is the green button down here on the bottom right corner of the sample company. Go ahead and select that, and the purchase order has been saved for us. Now, before going on to the next steps, let's go ahead and take a minute to review the purchase order. In order to find it, we need to go from the left navigation bar, hover over expenses, and then select vendors. Over here is that left navigation bar, and down here is expenses. Hover over that, and then go ahead and select vendors. We're going to narrow this down a little bit. So we're looking for any purchase orders. So to do that, we're going to click on the dark blue money bar. That's right here. You can see it says 2 purchase orders. Now, when you do that, you will see that there is a purchase order with Mahoney Mugs. This is the one that we just created. And then there's one that was already here in the system. So let's go ahead and take a look at the transactions, which includes that purchase order from Mahoney Mugs. We're going to click on their name. So go ahead and click on their name. And you see there's 2 here. There's one that says a check transaction and then the purchase order. This is the one we just created. Go ahead and click on that so that we can open it up. Now, this is a little bit different than what we had than when we had created it. There are now 2 new columns. There is this received and there is this closed. We will take a look at these a little bit closer in future steps. You can also create, as an aside, you can also create a bill directly from the purchase order. Not something we're doing in this exercise, but if you wanted to, you could just click on this copy to bill and it would create a bill for you based on this purchase order. So let's go ahead and get out of this. You can click on Save and Close on the bottom right corner. And now we're going to move on to part 2. Craig has purchased his first batch of mugs for $125. How would you record this purchase and track it against the purchase order? So we need to go back to that plus new button, click on that, and then click on expense. The plus new button, once again, is on the top left corner of the screen. Go ahead and click on that, and then under vendors, select expense. In the payee field, we want to select Mahoney Mugs. So click on that down arrow and scroll, or you can start typing their name in the box. Either way is fine. Once you find their name, go ahead and select it. And you'll notice that as soon as you select their name, a pop-out drawer is going to show up with the details of that open purchase order that we just created. We want to add this to the expense, so go ahead and click on Add right there. And when you do, when you add the purchase order from the drawer, QBO is automatically assuming that we want the full amount to the expense, this 500. But if you remember in that scenario that we just read, Craig only purchased $125 worth of mugs, so we need to make an adjustment here. In the amount field, we're going to type 125. So in that amount field, delete what is currently there, type 125. And if you hit the tab key, you will see that QBO has made the update for you in the expense. So we're all good here. We can go ahead and click on Save and Close. And as an aside here, we didn't do anything up in this area, but you would want to make sure that the payment account is correct and the payment date when it was the expense was actually, the purchase was actually made in a real life scenario. We're going to leave all of those things as is for now, but just keep that in mind in real life as you were doing this for a client. So go ahead and click on Save and Close. And you will notice that the expense has now been added to the Mahoney Mugs transactions. But let's review that purchase order again and see how that's changed. Go ahead and click on Purchase Order. And now notice that the received column is now showing as $125 being used or received against that purchase order. So if you wanted to see how it was used against it, the expense, you could just be clicking, or you could just click on one linked expense in the upper right corner to open a list of transactions that have been received. So if you click on this right here, you will see that expense that we just created is showing here on that list, and we can see that $125 is used towards this purchase order. So we're all good here. You can go ahead and click on the X to exit out of this. And let's move on to part 3. So now let's say that a lot of time has passed and it is now the end of the year. Craig wants to use up the rest of that purchase order. So he places an order with Mahoney's Mugs for $375. Record this purchase, check it against the purchase order, and confirm the purchase order is now closed. So we're going to create a new expense, and we're going to do it a little bit of a different way than we did on the first time we created an expense. This time we're going to click on the arrow next to New Transaction and select Expense. So that is right here. Go ahead and select that, and then click on Expense. By doing it this way through the vendor profile, it's already going to pull their name up here, and when their name is selected, this pop-up drawer is going to show up, and this is showing again that open purchase order that we had created earlier on in the exercise. We want to put in that remaining balance, so go ahead and click on Add. And then we're going to click on Save and Close. Once again, in real life, you would want to make sure that this information is all correct. We're leaving it as is for the purposes of this exercise. So let's go ahead and Save and Close. That is the green button down here on the bottom right corner. And now that expense has been saved. You can see the purchase order and then the 2 expenses. But let's review that purchase order one more time to see how it has changed. Go ahead and click on Purchase Order to open it up. And this time you will notice that the full amount is showing in the received column, and the purchase order is now checked off in the closed column, marking that it is closed, meaning that the full amount has been used. So if you wanted to see what those transactions were, you could click on the 2 linked transactions in the upper right hand corner to display a list of all the expense tracked against the purchase order. So if you click on this little link right here, you can see the 2 expenses that we had created that will go against this purchase order, and the 125 plus 375 equals 500, so that is why it is showing as closed. So that is all done. You can go ahead and click on the X to get out of it. And that's it. That is how you would use purchase orders. Now, if you like this exercise and you want to do more like it, or if you would like more information about that advanced level ProAdvisor certification course, be sure to click on the link below in the description, and I will see you in the next exercise.